Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to talk about something today that many people get wrong, just flat out wrong. And that's how to close the deal. How
the
to
dirty
actually
word,
get there.
Deb. We're going to say the dirty word.
I know. It's the closer, and it's not the one with Kira Sedgwick. We love that. She's very Atlanta in that, which is where I am. But yeah, it's all about how do you actually close the deal. So please join me in welcoming.
And feel good about it. Don't leave that out.
This is true. Yes, not the skeevy ooh, right?
No.
But yeah, so please join me in welcoming Bob King to our program today. Welcome, Bob. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Cool. We're going to have so much fun.
Excited to be with you and your minions.
I know. And I have lots of minions. I have minions around the world. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So Bob King literally wrote the book on closing for salespeople, closers, and anyone else who wants to know why they said yes on a day when somebody might have just been looking. His book, The Joy of Closing, reveals the secrets to earning the customer's business and getting them what they want. Pay attention to those words, folks. So again, Bob, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to speak with you.
Cool. I love it. Well, I always like finding out from my guests how they got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I was a filmmaker, made a couple of movies, sold a couple of scripts, never really made money. And that's because I never really got someone to hire me other than a handful of times over 19 years. And got hit by this thing called the global economic crisis back in 2009. Had to figure out a way to make money. And so I had to pay my rent, really, which was $1,200 at the time. And I went on a bunch of job interviews off Craigslist. The one that paid to train you was a job selling solar power for this company, and the guy I met with was sort of one of those guys that could sell you a blender at the state fair that you never thought about blenders.
Right.
And I've always been fascinated by con artist movies, The Lady Eve, The Sting, The Grifters. I love movies where bad people, well, not bad people do the wrong thing for the right reasons, vice versa. That's always been like something I've found, and I always wanted to know how they did it. And I knew this guy was up to no good, but I wanted to know how he did it. And so when he asked, if I was in or if I was out, he wasn't waiting for me. I wasn't like, go home and think about it. It was, he wanted to work then and there. If I was, going to work for this company who I knew nothing about, selling this thing that I knew nothing about. And I asked if he was doing the training. He said yes, and I agreed to go on this journey. And so I started selling. So it was 2 weeks of training. Oh, they paid to train you. So in the train, paid you $1,200. It was literally the amount
your rent
for 2 weeks of training. And so I ended, and halfway through the second week in training, they revealed the trick designed to engage the customer's greed. And it was every bit as exciting as I thought it would be. And then at the end of the training, I felt like I owed it to him to go on a couple of leads. Didn't sell the first two, came back, got some more guidance about what I'd done wrong, and sort of more of a schooling on how customers lie to you. And they really do. The customers lie about everything. I mean, even we as customers lie about everything to people who are selling most of the time. And then I started selling deals for this company, realized that they were even worse than I was afraid
Yeah, a
of.
little skeevy.
Yeah, left there for another company.
Mm-hmm.
But the crazy thing about that early period is what I figured out, I really trusted this guy and he
Mm-hmm.
really taught me how to earn a customer's trust
Mm-hmm.
and all the ways that you can blow a deal,
Mm-hmm.
either by making it about yourself
Right.
or doing some other
Mm-hmm.
thing that raises their
Mm-hmm.
shackles. Especially in a situation where if you didn't get the deal on that first day,
Mm-hmm.
you were basically out gas money and time and
Mm-hmm.
never going to be able to secure that
Mm-hmm.
customer's business. And so I was sort of, it was like this master's degree in buying psychology
Mm-hmm.
and earning someone's
Mm-hmm.
trust and doing a presentation
Mm-hmm.
that would take their chaos and turn it into clarity,
Mm-hmm.
that this is what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And those skills were so valuable to me, and I knew they were valuable
Mm-hmm.
that like I would tell him what went wrong, and he would say, "Oh, you made it about yourself," or
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you didn't take care of them when they asked
Mm-hmm.
you to whatever,
Mm-hmm.
small menial
Mm-hmm.
tasks, small, or oh, they disclosed something to you and you didn't reciprocate."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
this is why I was not hired in the film business."
Mm-hmm.
By my talent and the small successes that I'd had, I'd never really got to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
And it always failed at the same spot, which was getting someone to want to do business with me.
Right.
And so it was really a weirdly healing
Mm-hmm.
experience to come into this information
Mm-hmm.
and learn these skills at the same time as I was not working for a very good
Mm-hmm.
company. And that became more and more clear. And so I
Mm-hmm.
left there, went to a different company that was a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone at that company started a solar company.
Mm-hmm.
So I really mastered closing,
Mm-hmm.
teaching it to others. The
Mm-hmm.
yogis say, if you want to learn something, practice it. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
master it, teach it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really mastered closing by teaching others how to close. And
Okay.
that was a startup. And then that imploded and I went from there to a very reputable company
Mm-hmm.
and sort of had to figure out a way to earn someone's business
Mm-hmm.
without using the tricks that I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a whole book about that. It's called The Joy of Closing. There it is.
There it is. He's
Anyway,
being
that's the
Vanna.
first 40
Mm-hmm.
pages in a
Mm-hmm.
nutshell. Although it's
Right.
much, I mean, you read it, so I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a little more exciting as it unfolds,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully.
Right. Well, and I did read it, and I was talking to you before the program. I have to read usually a book a week. And typically kind of skim them, right? I can get what I need. And if we're going to talk about the book, I want to have, at least skim the book. And yours was so interesting. I read it pretty much word for word. It really was very interesting. And a lot of it was because I think we've all kind of been there, done that. Whether we've been the closer or the person, who's been on the other end. But I think the thing that I found most fascinating is like we were saying at the very start, we forget to get to that point. We don't have what, me in the marketing world say a call to action, right? We
Mm.
just kind of skip over that. We assume that whatever we've done has been fabulous enough that they're going to do it. Well, no, we
Right,
have
because the
to,
best idea always
right.
wins in life.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
yeah.
it be nice to live in that world?
Would that be perfect? Because
That's
I
not
always
the
have the
world.
best ideas, right?
Right, right.
But yeah, we just assume that we've presented whatever it is so wonderfully that they'll go off and buy it. And we
Right.
forget that we need to, in essence, say, are you going to buy it? And when, as in now.
Mhm.
And you talk about in the book, the people who they they have to go ask somebody else. So how do you deal with that?
But that's just a
We've
lie.
all done that,
That's
right? That's
almost always a lie.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
whole, the client
But
lies
you
or the
don't call
customer
them on the
lies.
lie. You
Right.
you tell
Yes.
you use
Hmm.
what they're telling
Hmm.
you as a way to
Right.
become more intimate.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
trick. It's
Yeah.
really about
Hmm.
intimacy.
Hmm.
Salespeople in general are
Hmm.
agents of change.
Right.
When you sit
Hmm.
down with a customer,
Hmm.
they have some vague interest in making the
Hmm.
change.
Right. Or they
At some
wouldn't be
point,
talking to you.
at some point,
Hmm.
maybe if it makes sense
Hmm.
and they can find the cheapest
Hmm.
version and they've done their own research
Hmm.
and it's their idea.
Hmm. Right.
And what you have to do as a salesperson, or really as a closer,
Hmm.
is take that chaos and
Hmm.
turn it into clarity
Hmm.
and do a sales presentation that engages their emotion.
Right. Hmm.
That's what closers
Hmm.
do that salespeople
Hmm.
don't, is
Hmm.
they engage with the customer's
Hmm.
emotions and get them to really want it.
Hmm.
And then once that happens, you still have to commit to the
Hmm.
idea that moving
Right.
forward is the best thing
Hmm.
for them
Hmm.
in a way that they find meaningful and
Hmm.
compelling and
Right.
personal. and personal.
Mhm.
And that's the trick. It's, but you see it a lot online. I think online retailers are actually a lot better than human beings are a lot of times. Last one at this price is a pretty effective tool.
Right. And it's never the last one at this price. Let's be
What about when they
honest,
say
folks.
last three? If they say last
Yeah.
three, then it's real, right, Deb?
Yeah. Sure. And I like it when I go back and the numbers have changed, right?
Right, right. But
Yeah.
it's an excuse. It's the excuse that that customer needed
Right.
to take action.
Mhm.
And taking action is such a scary and kind of tenuous thing that I think whatever it takes your customer to get to that point is worth bringing them to. And
Right.
it's not why I would buy it. It's why they would buy it.
Right.
And so, the skill of closing is something that everybody needs. You can't really function as a human being and be in relationship to other people without being able to get someone else to adopt your agenda and think it was their idea.
Right.
That's a skill we all have to some degree. Closers are just better at it in a commerce situation. But everybody has that skill one way or another.
Right. Yeah. We convince the kids to eat their dinner. We convince your spouse to load the dishwasher.
Right. But did you do it by threatening them or by making them, I mean, there's skill levels involved in that as well. And contemplating that is really valuable and really understanding the value of being that change agent and how and letting that be important to you as a human being. That's really the difference between my book and I think a lot of the stuff out there is, I'm very much I'm the anti whatever the culture of closing is. I wanted to write a book so no one would be trained the way I was, which was basically to engage the customer's greed and trick them into wanting to do it. That brought me to a certain level of success, but not a level of satisfaction that allowed me to really thrive as a closer. And when I connected with all the ways that closing that customer was actually being of service to them with a product that I believed in, with a company that I wanted to work for, magic happened. And so that's why I call it one call magic.
Right.
the distilled process of earning a customer's business, preferably on the first day. But even if it's not the first day, at least making the strongest possible first impression while you have the element of surprise, while that customer is still absolutely jazzed about the idea of moving forward and isn't in their analytical brain figuring out the cheapest way to do it.
Right. Or the way to get it out of it. And I think what I really liked about your book is so many times we think of this as deception, right? You mentioned it. We're tricking someone into buying whatever it is. And there are certainly methods to be used, especially in pricing and all of that. And you go into that. And I love
pricing
that.
As a construct.
Yeah.
Sales are always a construct.
Yeah.
There's no version of sales where you're not creating urgency.
Right.
We're always creating urgency. And sometimes it's just bringing that customer's awareness to things that really are about to happen.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it's a sale or a discount or something that your company has concocted in order to give that customer that little nudge to do it now.
Yeah. Last 5 at this price or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. And that's what that customer needs. And responding to their primal needs, it does not make you a charlatan.
No. But if you have truly tricked them, ew.
That's not fun. Yeah, that's not fun. Then you're a little bit of a con artist.
Yeah. And I love, because in your book you point out that you're trying to gain people's confidence, and then there are confidence men, and that is shortened to con men. And so, see, I read, and so there's kind of that progression. But we need to not have that ooh feeling. And what I really
like putting things in the most confrontational possible way. That's just my whatever, and it's worked for me. You have to be who you are. But it's really earning their trust more than anything else. You're transferring your confidence that moving forward is the best thing.
Right.
But it's really earning their trust at the level that is important to them. I mean, it really is about the customer. And the more experienced you become in sales, generally speaking, the more in tune you are with what an individual customer is looking for in terms of what will allow them to say, yes, I want this, let's do it.
Right. And sometimes you are not the best solution. And you talk in the book about be honest with them and say that, because then they
Yeah.
will trust you again, right? If you
Mhm.
say, you know what, it's not the right time. Now there's sometimes you're doing that to convince them to buy.
If you spend time understanding your
Mm-hmm,
customers' needs and
mm-hmm,
getting them to
mm-hmm,
disclose things to you through discovery
mm-hmm,
questions, or that's a fancy
mm-hmm,
name, just
mm-hmm.
paying some interest in why your
Right.
customer is
Mm-hmm,
contemplating your purchase.
mm-hmm,
And you as an expert
mm-hmm.
know that your solution is not the right one for
Mm-hmm.
them. It's really important to be honest about that.
Right.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
someone who says, always be. The problem with like closing, well, so
Right.
sales and then
ABC,
there's closing.
always be closing.
Oh, I mean, that's just not true.
Mm-hmm,
There's one thing that's right about that,
mm-hmm,
which is you do need to prep for meeting with a
mm-hmm,
customer
mm-hmm.
by really understanding,
Right.
by having belief in what you're
Mm-hmm,
doing. Like,
mm-hmm,
I'm not saying you don't need that. You
mm-hmm,
100% need that, or
mm-hmm,
everything in your sales pitch is multiplied by zero.
mm-hmm,
But there is, but if you start trying to close your customer from the minute you get there,
mm-hmm.
the hair on the back of their neck will
Right.
stand
We
up.
know. Mm-hmm,
Yeah, I mean, trying to close a sale because of what it means to you
mm-hmm,
is, in my opinion, a
mm-hmm,
recipe
mm-hmm.
for not being of service to that
Right.
customer and
Right.
really not conveying
Mm-hmm,
the kind of you're just not going to be their
mm-hmm,
expert if all
mm-hmm.
you care about is the
Right.
sale.
Yeah. Because
My favorite Christmas movie, there's always the Wonderful Life camp
mm-hmm,
and the Miracle on 34th Street
mm-hmm.
camp. And I'm definitely in the Miracle on 34th Street
Oh.
camp. Yeah, if you don't have the right thing for your customer, like telling
Mm-hmm,
them will get you a lot more
mm-hmm,
business than not telling
mm-hmm.
them.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it is about that honesty and that trust, because there are times where it's not right, but but you also, and of course the thing
But
is,
it may become right, and when it
right.
becomes right,
Yes.
that
Mm-hmm.
customer is yours. Like
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
they're not going to
Mm-hmm.
care about the price at
Right.
that point.
Or it might be
They're
you
going to
have a
care about
different
the value
product.
that you
Right.
brought to them
Mm-hmm.
by telling them the
Right.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important, I think. Also, there's this whole like thing about, do you say the thing that's going to make the customer like you, or the
Mm-hmm.
thing that's going to make them trust you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important to always say the thing that's going to make them trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that, thing is not going to lead them to make
Right.
a sale,
Mm-hmm.
earning that customer's trust
Mm-hmm.
has value that,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you can feel good about what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing and your role in your
Mm-hmm.
customers' lives, which is really, really
Mm-hmm.
important. But also, circumstances can change,
Mm-hmm.
and earning as a customer's trust
Mm-hmm.
is always valuable.
Right.
Yeah, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we've all had the icky experiences. And I was sharing with you at the start. So you talked in the book about how your dad came home with the pots and
Oh my
pans that he
God.
really didn't want to buy, but he did. So tell us a little bit more about that, because I got in the same
So
situation.
when I was sitting there with this guy and getting ready to make a decision, I had this flashback to when I was, I don't know how old I was, young, in my
Mm-hmm.
early, probably pre-teenage. And I remember going to this like thing with my dad where there was, a scratch off and
Mm-hmm.
a coupon, and we went into this dark office, very similar to the one I was
Mm-hmm.
in. This guy asked me the question, am I in or am I out? Where there were these pots and pans, and it was some like cassette tape monthly membership
Right.
scam.
Oh, we all
And
got stuck in Columbia House.
and
Mm-hmm.
and it was the last set of pots and pans they had
Mm-hmm.
available, and his wife would be so happy, and we came home with these pots and pans, and my stepmom was like, "What did you do?"
We don't need those. Mm-hmm.
And she looked up the
Mm-hmm.
fine print and found out that if you walk
Mm-hmm.
out with the gift, then you can't cancel it for 2 years, or some craziness like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, they had those pots and pans
Mm-hmm.
like their whole,
Of course.
even when they
Mm-hmm.
passed away, I had to throw
Mm-hmm.
away those pots and pans. But it just like I just
Mm-hmm.
became fascinated with, like, I want to
Mm-hmm.
know how they did it. And
Right.
uh,
Yeah, because
and
your
my
dad was an intelligent man. How did he get
studio
stuck with
executive,
pots and
smart guy,
pans? Right.
yeah, great
Yeah.
provider, and
Oh, yeah.
otherwise very intelligent person. But we're
Yeah.
all human beings.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had, when I was young and single, so a long time ago, I, had a knock at the door at the apartment complex I lived in. And there was this very handsome young man. Now, that was part of it, selling pots and pans. And so I heard his spiel. And he was good. He was really good, but he was very he had the personality. I mean, he was going to sell ice to an Eskimo, right?
Right.
And he sold me the pots and the pans, but part of it was part of his shtick. After I got the pots and pans, he would come back and fix me dinner. I was young, I was single, he was handsome. I was like, "Whoa, this is fun." And all of these various things, and I did. I signed on the dotted line, and then the next day, if even that long, reality hit. And I went, okay, I can't afford this. He's not going to come back and fix me dinner. I mean, all of those various things. And I was able to cancel. I mean, I didn't have those pots and pans forever and go into debt buying the stupid things. But he came back mad because, and and I was like, dude, yeah, you appealed to me for a little bit, but then I got smart. But I know he sold lots of pots and pans to young single women by promising everything that he was doing. And right then I thought, I don't ever want to be in that type of position. And it was
That's the
just
crazy
ew.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the companies that are best at training closing
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes have the absolute worst products.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
if you made an analytical decision,
Mm-hmm.
it would never
Right. You go,
align with the
no
evidence
way.
lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I came to this company, like after working for two other
Mm-hmm.
companies, and realized the opportunity I had, where
Mm-hmm.
this was a great company with an incredible reputation, selling the absolute best equipment and
Mm-hmm.
using the highest quality of
Mm-hmm.
installs and charging a very fair, if not
Mm-hmm.
even low price for it when we started,
Mm-hmm.
I knew the opportunity I had,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to be able to harness all the presentation skills that
Mm-hmm.
I'd been,
Mm-hmm.
blessed to understand,
Mm-hmm.
and all the things, and not have to rip off my
Mm-hmm.
customers. And what I realized, I flashed back to when the startup that I worked for
Mm-hmm.
initially, when we started, I
Mm-hmm.
was the only one working there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, selling. I was the only one
Mm-hmm.
going to sales,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I hadn't built a sales team yet.
Right.
And I had in place all the, a third party to call
Mm-hmm.
is about like, why we had to
Mm-hmm.
do this today from not from me and
Mm-hmm.
things like that you use
Right.
oftentimes to
Yeah,
get
the
customers
car
free.
dealer manager that has to
And
sign
I
off
never
on
used it. I
stuff.
never had to call the manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the CEO was a little disappointed because he
Mm-hmm.
loved doing those calls,
Mm-hmm.
and he loved the idea. It was just fun, it
Mm-hmm.
was fun. You're putting on a
Mm-hmm.
show. We were getting them solar
Mm-hmm.
power. They were saving lots of
Mm-hmm.
money, tens of thousands of
Mm-hmm.
dollars, not more over the years. So it wasn't like we were getting them to buy
Mm-hmm.
something terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But I never needed to use that other thing. And I thought about
Mm-hmm.
why didn't I have to use it?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is because I believed in what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really how I was able to come up with what
Right.
I want to call magic, which is a
Mm-hmm.
distilled version of this sprawling sales call where,
Mm-hmm.
you talk about making dinner for them and all that stuff into 7 steps in a
Mm-hmm.
forecast that
Mm-hmm.
really can be used for selling almost
Mm-hmm.
anything. And I know that because I
Mm-hmm.
consulted with other types of
Mm-hmm.
salespeople before I ever,
Right.
wrote about it.
Mm-hmm.
But to get back to where this whole question started, I don't want anyone to be trained the way I was,
Mm-hmm.
which is to engage the customer's greed, to sell
Mm-hmm.
them something they don't want or
Mm-hmm.
need. I want people to be able to use
Mm-hmm.
all the wonderful things
Mm-hmm.
about closing skills and all that stuff to do what I was able to do once I landed at a
Mm-hmm.
company where I could really truly believe in what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, you still need to work, you need to be committed
Mm-hmm.
in a way that people just aren't in society
Right.
today.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier to well, it's easier in life. I don't know if that's today or not,
Mm-hmm.
but there's always been like 20% of any sales team
Mm-hmm.
that does 80% of the
Mm-hmm.
business.
Right.
And so I wanted to write a book that would tell the 80% what the
Mm-hmm.
20% never will.
Mm-hmm.
And also that would take the stigma off of closing
Mm-hmm.
from this thing that you impose on a customer into what it really is, which
Mm-hmm.
is being of maximum service to
Mm-hmm.
them. So,
Right.
so you can use closing techniques even if you're selling an excellent
Mm-hmm.
product.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
every customer, people don't just jump
Mm-hmm.
into something that's great for them
Mm-hmm.
because we don't live in a world where the best idea always
Right.
wins.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the culture of sales now has turned people into what I call a great presenter.
Mm-hmm.
So, you show up for that customer wherever, either they come into your workplace or you go to them,
Mhm.
and you tell them about your product, your goods, your services, and how wonderful it is. You tell them how great your company is. And if you don't have the skill to take that enthusiasm that you create and turn it into a sale, you leave them vulnerable.
Mhm.
They now want what you have
Right. But they don't
infinitely
know how to get
more.
it.
They have
Mhm.
clarity that they want it. They want to do it
Mhm.
now. And so they are either going to go online and find a cheaper
Mhm.
version, which may be vastly inferior to what
Mhm.
you were going to do for them, or someone else comes along who just
Mhm.
happens to know how to close them,
Mhm.
and they're just a sitting duck for that
Mhm.
person, maybe with an
Mhm.
inferior product or a worse company, or
Mhm.
maybe they're even charging them
Mhm.
more, but they will get that business that
Mhm.
you actually created
Mhm.
by working with that
Mhm.
customer's resistance. And so I want everyone to have these
Mhm.
skills. I think once you learn the skill of earning someone's trust,
Mhm.
it is such a powerful,
Mhm.
meaningful experience,
Mhm.
both for you and for the
Mhm.
customer, that you just kind of want to keep doing it.
Right. Right. Well, and you mentioned this at the end of the book, but ultimately what you are wanting is their referrals and their 5-star reviews. And they have to be happy with what happened, or you're not going to get that. They're not going to refer you to their friends because it's their reputation on the line. And they're certainly not going to give you reviews, because we want 5, right? Not 4, not 3. We want 5 stars.
Right.
And they're not going to do that if they weren't happy. And we never are happy if we think we got ripped off.
Well, there's sort of two parts of that. One is like how to create the happy customer, because you're
Mm-hmm.
right. You don't create a happy, and happy
Mm-hmm.
customers don't happen because you did a good job. They
Right.
happen because you create them. You
Mm-hmm.
find touch
Mm-hmm.
points to connect with them so that they're in touch with it, with the fact that
Mm-hmm.
your company's honoring all the commitments that you
Mm-hmm.
made in the
Mm-hmm.
magical glow of your sales
Right.
call.
Mm-hmm.
Or if something's gone a little off and they don't understand something, or they think you said something that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't, you can kind of steer them in the
Mm-hmm.
direction of being happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if or like in the real world, a human being in operations maybe didn't do something so great.
Right.
And I wanted a sales book that would also tell, look, the great thing about closing is you're going to get deals, but if
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what to do after that,
Right.
you can actually,
Mm-hmm.
well, A, it can make unhappy
Mm-hmm.
customers out of ones that could otherwise be
Mm-hmm.
happy, but it can also kind of lose your mojo
Mm-hmm.
because then you're only talking to customers who are unhappy, and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly it's a little harder to do.
Yeah. Ugh.
And moving forward is
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you work for a good company with good
Mm-hmm.
intentions that makes the vast
Mm-hmm.
majority of your customers happy, you need to stay in touch with them.
Right.
And we have these superpowers. If you when you close a customer and earn their trust, you have an incredible ability to influence
Mm-hmm.
how they feel about that
Mm-hmm.
impulse buy that they made, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
their analytical buy that they
Mm-hmm.
made once they impulse
Mm-hmm.
buy magic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just because you don't close them on the first
Mm-hmm.
date doesn't mean making a great
Mm-hmm.
first impression doesn't lead them to do business with
Mm-hmm.
you. It does.
Right.
So the first part of that third, that doesn't make sense. It's not even a third. But I do think I broke new ground there for two reasons. One is it talks about the closer's role in creating that happy
Mm-hmm.
customer. Really important. How to get along with your ops
Mm-hmm.
team, how to manage your manager.
Right. Yeah. Your role has not ended. That's the
Managing your
thing.
manager
Mm-hmm.
is also
Mm-hmm.
incredibly important,
Mm-hmm.
which is a small chapter, but a very
Mm-hmm.
important one.
Mm-hmm.
And then um, once you create that happy
Mm-hmm.
customer, it's not just that you created
Mm-hmm.
the happy customer that gets you
Mm-hmm.
five-star reviews and referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Customers 100% need to be closed on writing you a good review.
Mm-hmm.
They do
Right.
not just magically happen because you did it
No,
a good
no.
job.
Mm-hmm.
You literally have to walk
Mm-hmm.
them through. There is like a 6-step process,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
detailed.
We love
There.
complaining, but we're never going to think, ooh, I need to go say wonderful things about Bob.
Anything that requires how to harvest 5-star reviews. There you
Mm-hmm.
go. It's the
Yep. There it
longest
is.
how-to
Yep.
part of the
Yep.
book. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's the longest like little chapter ending. It's the longest box.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the
Mm-hmm.
boxes are like a little tiny thing. Go out and pay some sincere compliments. There's
Mm-hmm.
lots of exercises and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
but that's like the one where you need to do it in
Mm-hmm.
a very specific
Mm-hmm.
way, including getting the customer to post the review that you
Yes.
more or less wrote for
Mm-hmm.
them in
To
their own
not just
words.
say, oh, sure, I'll do it.
You
Oh, yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
literally need to call
Mm-hmm.
them up Get them motivated, not to because they owe you anything, because customers owe you nothing. And if you don't think they owe you nothing, try acting like they owe you something to see how far you get. You
Right.
need to motivate them by saying, would you be willing to help others? By
Yes.
sharing your experience
Not
of
help
what it's like to
me,
work with us.
help
So,
others.
and then you say, great, it takes about, you give however many times, usually about 20 minutes. If they can't do it now, you set a time to call them back. You ask them a few pointed questions. You write down or type up as they're saying them in their own words. You read it all back to them and you ask, does that sound like you? If the answer is no, you
redo.
keep going until it sounds like them. A lot of times they'll want to add something, which is great. And then you send it to them and say, now listen, my experience is that if we don't post this right now, there's about a 50% chance that this will just be something that you feel guilty about for a couple of weeks and then completely forget about entirely. Can we do that? And customers will laugh and they'll say, sure. Because I mean, funny helps. Funny really helps.
Yes.
If you're not funny, also people sell different ways. I sell because I'm funny. And because I mean what I say. And there's always meaning in humor anyway. And so then I walk them through doing it, honoring the time commitment that I made at the very beginning. It all gets done in like 20 minutes, including the pictures. And then they can go on their day. Once that customer has posted that 5-star review, a customer who says they know no referrals will suddenly be on LinkedIn. I mean, on their, what's the next door, like telling all their neighbors, your name, be sure and mention me when they call you. It's crazy how quickly putting something in writing makes people want to put their mouth where their mouth is. And that's a really great, wonderful thing about it. And it gives you faith in human nature when that happens.
Right.
Anyway, so that's how you get a 5-star review.
And of course, if it's not going to be 5-star, you need to find out how you can fix it.
Well, I always say, if it's 5-star, you can thank me by writing a review. If it's 4-star, you can thank me by not writing a review.
Right. And we'll fix it.
And of course we're going to fix, but sometimes you're done fixing it and you're only going to get to 4 stars.
Sometimes people are they're not going to do 5. That's just whatever.
I've actually not encountered that. I think if you just frame it as a 4-star review hurts you, if they really understand that, they're not going to write a 4-star review. If you've made a sincere effort, if that's a customer who's going to write a review, that 4 gets nudged to a 5, just based on their good intentions for you. You just need to connect them with.
Right. And I love what you're saying about, it continues. We moved to Atlanta in 2012 and had this realtor who worked really, really hard for us. I mean, we were under the gun. We had sold our house. We needed to find a new place within like a week. And we'd flown from Denver to here, yada, 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 yada.
So you're a planner is what you're trying to tell me.
I know. She found us this great place and then poof, dropped off the face of the earth. She did not come to closing. And it was just so strange because, and we got no follow-up calls from her. We got nothing from her. And, and it wasn't, I don't think we made her mad or anything like that. She got everything she was supposed to get. But when people said, who did you use? I would tell them who we used and then say, but don't use her. And it was all, and we never did know why she didn't come to closing. I mean, it was, I thought they had to, I mean, and it was just the weirdest thing. Yeah. And it was like, we were the hot potato. I mean, she didn't, and she is with one of those, realty companies. And I have no idea if she's still there, but, that, because I know other people with that and they said, oh, we are required that we are to email a certain time, a month, we are to email, we're to call every quarter, all of these things. And I said, well, she didn't, it left, the bad part was it left a bad taste in our mouths, not only for her, but for her entire company.
Yeah. How you finish is really important.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I mean, the future of any really successful business is so dependent on referrals and repeats.
Right. Especially a realtor. Holy schmoly.
Yeah. And what I tell people is, because I get hired to consult for companies quite often. And I always say, don't just have your sales team read my book.
Mm-hmm.
Like the truth is anyone that interfaces with your customers has the opportunity to be a closer.
Right.
Close them on the experience that they're having and
Mm-hmm.
how happy they are with the decision they made.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're either doing that or the operations equivalent of reading your horoscope behind the cash register asking, can I help you?
Right.
Yeah, like that's what normal salespeople do. You know, they have like whatever, some script they're supposed to go through or something like that, but they don't really, they're just not that interested in other people. And the other thing is, I know you work with a lot of your listeners are small business owners. Don't look for somebody who has these great presentation skills. Look for somebody who has the capacity to pay attention to other people.
Empathy.
That's the skill
Empathy,
you need
folks.
to be a closer. Yeah. Yeah. If you can pay attention to someone and think of and become their trusted expert by having the ability to analyze their needs and meet them, you know, that's what turns you into a great closer. That's what turns you into even a great operations person.
Right.
And we all know it when we see it. We all know a great ops person, you know, when you come across it. And I'm really asking people to step into that role because we all have that capacity.
Right.
It's not some magic thing that happens because you read a book or because you're a great person. It's just someone asking you to step outside of yourself and commit to things.
Right.
And when you commit to things, great things happen, you know? Yeah.
Right. You know, and so the other question that I kept thinking about when I was reading the book, because you talk about what to do when they have questions, hesitation, things like that. And they almost always are, right? Nobody's like, oh yeah, I want to buy this like from the first 5 minutes. What do you do if it's a hard no? I mean, and I've had some people say there's never a hard no.
No, well, I'm happy for a hard no. Or soft no. My goal when I show up with a customer, look, I'm going to give that customer everything they need to make an informed decision. So when you show up at a sales call, that customer is expecting two things: a scope of work and a price.
Right.
And a sales call is really a striptease towards price. You don't want to show them the goods until that money is in your G-string. And the money in your G-string means you've made them feel the pain of their current situation and the pleasure of your solution. You have done a forecast that calms them and lets them see that light at the end of the tunnel where they're going to get a price. You have told them about your company, made them understand with all the tribal reasons that people fall in love with working with you and your company. You've told them about the product in a sensual way that gives them the experience of whatever, you know, if it's a car, it's a test drive. When I was selling tea, it was tasting the tea. But they experience the product in a way that allows their senses to say, yes, I want this. And you've done a price presentation that builds value and ultimately gives them the answer they're looking for. You turn, you know, and once you say that, you stop talking. And that's when really closing begins, is after you presented price. But that customer, when you show up, will say anything to get out of that experience.
Right.
And I don't know why. It's a wonderful experience, but I think it's because, you know, their lizard brain is saying like, no, you need to don't do this.
Don't spend money. Danger.
When everything feels right. Don't do it now. There might be something better out there.
That's it. Yeah. Tomorrow you'll find a better deal.
And that lizard brain will keep you in stasis. Will keep you doing whatever you're doing now that isn't working. And so we have to even if you just want to be a good salesperson, you can't really do that without being a closer, because unless you're willing to go there with that customer, overcome their lizard brain and get them what they want, you're just someone who's going to design a scope of work and spit out a price and leave them vulnerable to someone who's better at the job than you.
Right. You know, and they may buy it, you know, who knows, but
1 in 10 is going to go forward no matter what. Right.
Yeah.
And that's still a fun experience. But if you want to get that above, you know, 1 in 10, you got to make some extra effort. You got to have some other skills, and you have to connect with that part of you that is able to connect with other human beings and influence their behavior.
Right. Right. So in the book, you've got 7 steps. Now we want people to buy the book, so we're not going to give away everything, right? But kind of briefly talk to us about some of the steps.
Well, the first one's really important, which is a warm-up.
I loved it.
You want to do a warm-up and just connect with that person as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to probably pay them a sincere compliment. You're going to, and when you pay a sincere compliment, by the way, it doesn't just make them like you, although it does make them like you.
Mm-hmm.
It connects you with
Mm-hmm.
an aspect of the person you're
Mm-hmm.
speaking that you're not necessarily going to think
Mm-hmm.
about otherwise. And
Right.
so it just lifts all boats, and it turns the sales call from what can I get from you into who can we be to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also going to find common ground. Like one of the things I learned when I first started going on sales calls is how hardwired I was to argue with people. I love like engaging with people at the
Mm-hmm.
level of controversy. And that is not a great approach to earning someone's trust.
No.
So I would go on a meeting with like a producer when I was in the
Mm-hmm.
film business and start picking fights about the posters up on their wall, which were probably projects they worked on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just an idiot. I really
Yeah,
was.
that movie
And I'm not
sucked.
expecting anyone else to be that dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're looking for is things that you have in common,
Mm-hmm.
things that you are in the same
Right.
vibe. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
want to
Mm-hmm.
identify and you want that
Mm-hmm.
customer to identify with you as
Mm-hmm.
members of the same club,
Right.
share interests and
Mm-hmm.
desires and
Mm-hmm.
background and
Mm-hmm.
experience. Like that's how we connected
Mm-hmm.
with each other as
Mm-hmm.
human beings.
Right.
The second step, and then they're going to kind of merge
Mm-hmm.
from there. And you know, there's a lot of talk about empathy in the world
Mm-hmm.
of sales. Empathy is like a $5 word for just giving a shit about the
Mm-hmm.
person that you're with.
Right. Yeah.
But it is really important to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, you're going to shift the topic to what you're there to discuss,
Mm-hmm.
which is your goods or services,
Right.
simply by asking a discovery question or
Mm-hmm.
two, making them getting some information so you
Mm-hmm.
can start to become their expert.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to get into a section I call feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that salespeople don't generally do,
Mm-hmm.
which is make the customer feel the pain of their current situation.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
cannot be an effective agent of change
Mm-hmm.
without making that customer uncomfortable.
Right.
And
Because then
so,
they have to know that to get comfortable, they need your product or service.
yeah, but you need to make, again, we're not trying to like give them an intellectual
Right.
series of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give them an emotional
Mm-hmm.
experience. So I'm going to make them feel the pain of the status quo in some way, a
Mm-hmm.
chart, words I'm
Mm-hmm.
discussing, whatever it is. There's always a way to make the
Mm-hmm.
customer, I worked with a skincare company where they would literally like magnify the customer's
Yeah.
face and
Yeah.
talk about all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Those are the people that went.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
had people there that
I
didn't
want
do
that to
because they
not
wanted to be
happen.
nice,
Mm-hmm.
and being nice does not get you business.
No.
So anyway, doctors have, you know, the greatest closing
Mm-hmm.
tool where they're like, "You're gonna die."
Yeah.
So
Change
but
or.
good closers. They're horrible customers, but they're great
Mm-hmm.
closers. And I say that with love, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
every doctor I ever met with well, it usually has two ideas when you
Mm-hmm.
get there. A, they know more about what you do than you
Mm-hmm.
do, and B,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to rip them off. So you have to
Yes.
always overcome that when you're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
doctors. That's a little sales tip for people selling to doctors. And there are people that sell to doctors. It's a funny thing. But anyway, so you make them feel the pain of their
Mm-hmm.
current situation. That's the second step.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the most overlooked one
Mm-hmm.
because it's
We
uncomfortable.
kind of assume they know it, or they wouldn't be talking to
Oh, I
us.
think it's just afraid of making someone uncomfortable.
Right.
Again, it's trying to make the customer like you instead of
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be really, really comfortable with making them uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and then talking about the pleasure of your solution
Mm-hmm.
in a way that makes them want it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the emotional roller coaster that guy who almost sold you those pots and pans,
Mm-hmm.
probably sold a lot down the hall,
Mm-hmm.
did. Like that's what they did that was different.
Mm-hmm.
That got your attention and then
Mm-hmm.
engaged your emotions. And then you're by then, so you know, you bonded with this customer.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably given them a scope of work. Usually the scope
Mm-hmm.
of work comes in that
Mm-hmm.
second section. And then they become really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't give them this light at the end of the tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to start saying things like, "I get it. What's the price?"
Right.
So you need to do something called a forecast.
Mm-hmm.
A forecast is a one sentence, one or two sentence,
Mm-hmm.
one breath pre-cap of
Mm-hmm.
what comes next,
Mm-hmm.
with emphasis on that thing that they want, which
Mm-hmm.
is giving them a price typically on
Mm-hmm.
a sales call. And so it's like what they say, you know,
Mm-hmm.
before they go to commercial,
Mm-hmm.
right? coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over the 3 most important things about the decision that you're going to make,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to do it, what we use, and how much
Mm-hmm.
it costs. I will
Right.
go in that
Mm-hmm.
order. I don't even pause for a yes there. I
Mm-hmm.
just start talking about the
Mm-hmm.
who's going to do it, which is called a company story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another area where closers and salespeople are very distinct in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how they talk about their company.
Mm-hmm.
Salespeople generally don't do it at all,
Right.
and closers tend to do it quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
in a very distilled fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going, and this is every good, effective company
Mm-hmm.
does this. Apple, think different. Like everyone knows who Apple is.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, and that's because they've been telling their company story
Yes.
the day that
Since
they,
they flung
so,
the
yeah.
hammer into the screen, right?
The bottle of, if you
Mm-hmm.
ever read a bottle of Snapple,
Mm-hmm.
company stories right there on
Mm-hmm.
those little
Right.
space
Mm-hmm.
next to the ingredients.
Right.
Great companies tell great company
Mm-hmm.
stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just through their packaging or I
Mm-hmm.
mean, their packaging tells that
Mm-hmm.
story as well. But also, if there's a great origin
Mm-hmm.
story, you're going to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's a lot of instruction in the book
Mm-hmm.
about how to do that effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the core customer in
Mm-hmm.
an aspirational way is really
Mm-hmm.
important. That's something that gets left out. There's one of those little boxes will tell you, ask a few questions. It gives you the
Mm-hmm.
recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then um, and then you're going to give the customer a sensual experience of your product,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to present price.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing about a sales call is from end of warm up to price presentation, it really doesn't vary
Mm-hmm.
if you're good at your job,
Right.
because you're going to be doing this with virtually every customer you see.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to figure out what to say about your company every time you sit down with a
Yeah.
customer,
Somehow you've
you're
not.
just a
Mm-hmm.
bad driver.
Mm-hmm.
You're just someone who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know which pedal to push to make the car
Mm-hmm.
stop.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't look at traffic. You can't see when they're nodding. You
Mm-hmm.
can't see when they're shaking their
Mm-hmm.
head. You're just trying to figure stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell people, like, that is not how you seem fresh and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
The fresh and exciting part of a sales call, the warm-up's different every time. And the closing is what will make one customer say yes on that day, or
Mm-hmm.
make them, work. What will
Mm-hmm.
cut through their resistance and make them say, yes, I want
Mm-hmm.
this, is truly different every time.
Right.
And so if you're looking for a way to make this exciting, that's where you want to put your focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway,
Yeah,
so
figuring out that last little
there's
piece.
closing, which is the biggest chapter in the
Mm-hmm.
book.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's hopefully cool down
Mm-hmm.
and contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 7 steps.
I love it. And it is a very methodical type of thing. And when we think about good sales, a time when we've, had a good experience, they followed that process. And we might know the price already, but we're going to kind of wait and see what it is that they're presenting and all of those things. But it really is, like you said, it's a very structured process.
Well, I'm a storyteller, and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing more structured than a screenplay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To writing. I mean, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
haiku, but other than a haiku, a
Mm-hmm.
screenplay is the most structured form of writing that I'm aware of. And it's also very distilled.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if, there's something I brought to the world of
Mm-hmm.
sales, there's a couple, I mean, I think the
Right.
stuff
It is kind of a screenplay.
Yeah, I think it really is. And I think bringing storytelling to a sales call, which is what One Call Magic, the system I created or adapted, I guess I would say. But there's a few new bells. There's something called 3 Reasons, which I came up with on my own. And there's definitely stuff in the Creating Happy Customers section. Maybe someone else came up with the same time as me, but I definitely did. No one told me that stuff. But the One Call Magic is really a 12-step process distilled into 7 steps in a forecast, with the emphasis on telling the customer a story, taking them on an emotional journey,
Right.
the same way a feature film does, and leading them to the end to when you say, are we doing this? That everything in them wants to say, of course, who wouldn't? Or how soon can we get started? Now, they may not say that, but if you are a really great closer, a huge percentage of your customers will feel that, will think that.
Right.
And then it's up to you to work
Right.
with their
Then they
business.
want the details.
Well, no, their limbic brain though is saying it, but their lizard brain is going, yeah, I just need to talk to the boss,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
even when they're the boss,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
I just need to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
even though everything feels
Mm-hmm.
right, even though you've created
Mm-hmm.
this urgency, and then sometimes you just need to keep asking.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it, or just asking in a different
Mm-hmm.
way, or go down a couple of rabbit
Mm-hmm.
holes that they spit out, like
Mm-hmm.
follow their lies.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
say lies very
Mm-hmm.
provocatively. They don't know they're lying.
Right.
They're presenting,
Mm-hmm.
in sales, we have conditions and
Mm-hmm.
objections.
Mm-hmm.
Customers always present objections,
Mm-hmm.
which are of this is I'm coming finally full circle to what you asked about this question, which is a customer saying no. So if a customer says no, they made a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Sales people do not die because too many customers said no.
Right.
They die because too many customers said not to, I'm not going to
Not
this.
today.
An
Mm-hmm.
objection is just a way for
Mm-hmm.
the lizard brain to
Mm-hmm.
keep that customer from
Mm-hmm.
making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Right.
usually an excuse. Sometimes it's an outright
Mm-hmm.
lie.
Mm-hmm.
And working with that resistance means delving deeper into what they
Mm-hmm.
said until they tell you what's really
Mm-hmm.
holding them back.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, or maybe just confronting that excuse with some reality
Mm-hmm.
that you can bring their attention to
Mm-hmm.
and overcome it. A lot of times that's the case.
Right.
But in any case, the answer is if a customer really says no because it's a no,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's fine. That's
Yeah. Then you're
okay. I
done.
did my job. My
Mm-hmm.
job when I show up is not to get them to say
Mm-hmm.
yes or no. My job is to inspire them to make an informed
Mm-hmm.
decision.
Right.
And
And sometimes that informed
if
decision
I do
is
that,
no.
my closing rate will be
Mm-hmm.
astronomical
Mm-hmm.
compared to everyone else in my
Right.
company. And that's really one of the things that the
Mm-hmm.
20% know that the 80% don't,
Mm-hmm.
is that you don't go for them saying yes. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you if you believe in what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, you're going to,
Mm-hmm.
lead them to a
Mm-hmm.
yes more times than not.
Mm-hmm.
But really inspiring them to make a
Mm-hmm.
decision is the bigger challenge,
Mm-hmm.
is really getting that customer to
Mm-hmm.
trust you enough to say yes or
Is
no.
to hand you that credit card.
That's the Herculean
Mm-hmm.
accomplishment.
Right.
And whether it's yes or no is kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it's not irrelevant because you
Mm-hmm.
don't get paid for no's,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really not nearly as painful to hear a
Mm-hmm.
no as to buy a customer's lie that they need to think it over.
Yes. I need to ask my husband, my wife, my boss, my whoever.
Whoever it was they told you
Mhm.
didn't matter when you got there because
Yes. Yeah. They don't
you're
need to be
great.
here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they told
Yeah.
you all that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you can't really hold them to it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Mm-hmm.
be a little more ninja. You need to be, I
Right.
would say a closer is part 6-year-old and part
Mm-hmm.
lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And the proper balance is 80% 6-year-old
Mm-hmm.
and 20% lawyer. So
Right.
no one wants to sign a contract with a
Mm-hmm.
6-year-old. But if you try and be a lawyer when they're doling out objections,
No.
yes, you do. I mean, you'll
Mm-hmm.
say things like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to think
Right.
of, no, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a 6-year-old, you'll
Mm-hmm.
say,
Why?
well, what do you think she'll
Uh-huh.
say?
Yeah.
And when they say, oh, I need to talk to my wife about it, you say, well, what do you think she'll say?
Right. Could we get her in here? Yeah.
Or can we
Whatever it
get in
is.
here? But
Mm-hmm.
but just what do you think she'll say can
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes get that
Mm-hmm.
customer back in touch with all the reasons they
Right.
want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly you just ask the question again,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like you really want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you know what? I do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get started.
Right.
That's what happens. It happens
Mm-hmm.
all the time
Mm-hmm.
in this magical world of people who know how to close people,
Mm-hmm.
people who know how to be intimate with their customers. And it doesn't happen if you're not willing to go there, if you're not
Mm-hmm.
committed to the idea
Mm-hmm.
that A, working with you and your company is a good idea,
Mm-hmm.
and B, you have to start any closing
Mm-hmm.
with the premise that there is a way to get any given customer
Mm-hmm.
to move forward on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
Because there really
Right.
is. And once you do that, closing becomes this human Sudoku
Mm-hmm.
puzzle that is infinitely fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it comes back to what we were saying at the very start. It is all about that trust. And yeah, I mean, we've all worked with salespeople that we don't like, but we know what they're telling us is probably good for us. Back to, the doctor question, right? I don't like
buy
you
from
as my
someone you
doctor.
don't like
Mhm.
if you trust them. You will never buy from someone you don't trust, no matter
Right.
how
Right.
them. So,
Mhm.
yeah, a
Yeah.
salesperson who's earned your
Mhm.
business has created trust
Mhm.
every single time.
Right. And then it is easier when you ask for the sale. and when you ask for referrals, all of those things. I always like it when, people who I don't know on, say, LinkedIn, ask me for a referral. I'm like, why would I put my reputation on the line by giving you a referral? I don't know you from Adam.
That
And
gives me the willies too. I mean, I'm working with another website and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of that.
Mhm,
And it's been fun because I've been connecting with
mhm,
small business owners and I really like it.
mhm.
But the culture of like referring every person you
Yeah,
meet is not in line with my morals at
no,
all.
no.
And or even what I
Mhm,
think is good business
mhm.
practice. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. It's
Mhm,
an interesting world that
mhm,
we're in. Because you do want to network and create
mhm,
connection.
mhm,
And I love small business owners.
mhm.
That's the thing is like, a lot of times I work with companies where the business owners had
Mhm,
some success, hired a
mhm.
sales team and failed miserably.
Right.
Almost always it's because the sales team is not connected with what the owner knows.
Right. They don't feel the passion of the company, the mission, all of
They
those
don't,
things.
that's what it
Mhm,
is. So
mhm,
a lot of times, well, first of all, you're right. The
mhm,
owner, here's what an owner brings to every sale and why they're
mhm,
almost always good closers.
mhm,
They might even be terrible presenters, but
mhm.
they are usually good closers because
Right.
they have belief that they're going to
Mhm,
do a good job for that
mhm,
customer, which they don't always transmit to
mhm,
the sales team.
mhm,
And they know the niche their company was
mhm,
created to fulfill. And
mhm.
so when they meet a customer that their company was designed to serve,
Right. Their passion goes,
that
"Wah!"
understanding is so
Mhm,
powerful
mhm,
that any amount of
mhm,
bad closing skills can pretty much
mhm.
be overcome
Right.
just by the fact of their own
Mhm,
belief. And but that oftentimes you need a sales team
mhm,
to be able to articulate it
mhm,
in a way that the owner just
mhm,
feels. And also, you need that sales team to get connected with
mhm.
the owner's good intentions,
Right.
which,
Right.
I can do in 3 or 4
Mhm.
meetings, and usually not a
Right.
lot of money.
And
So
and
that
sometimes,
in mind,
yeah,
small
sometimes
business
they're not
owner.
going to
And
do
I
it.
can do it remote. And if you buy
Mhm.
20 copies of my book, you get an hour of my time for free, which will make you want to hire me to do a little bit more. It's get a little bit pregnant theory, but it's
Right.
fun. It's a lot
Mhm,
of fun. And even if you only have 5 salespeople, there's still 20 people in your company who
mhm.
could do
Who
a
could
much
benefit?
job
Yep.
for
I
your
love it. Or you've
customers.
got
Can read
15
it.
friends.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it's
well,
Christmas time for
yeah.
God's sakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they want to work with you,
Oh no, it's
how do they
not. We're
find
past
you?
Christmas. It is not Christmas time in the world of the
Yep.
power hour, is it?
Mhm. It is not. It is not. We're in
Time to get back
January.
to work. It's
We're in
January,
this time
kids.
with this time loop. We're in
It's enough with the
January.
gifts. You need to get
Mhm.
back into
Yes, get back to work. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. But speaking of, if they
Yeah.
want to work with you, how do they work with you? How do they find you?
I have a website. It's joyofclosing.com. And it's easy to contact me there. Also, I'm on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I have a TikTok, which I'm gonna start cutting more clips for, called Joyful Closer or at Joyful Closer. I have a YouTube channel as well, Joy of Closing, but I have not populated. But by the time this airs, it'll be full of stuff.
You'll be there. You'll be
Oh, it will
there.
be. And this will be a fun addition to
Mhm.
it. My book is on Amazon, and
Mhm.
that's every Amazon in the world. So there's an audiobook, there's a Kindle. I recorded the audiobook.
Oh.
There's Kindle as well as paperback.
Mhm.
And if off my website, if you buy 20 copies of The Joy of Closing,
Mhm.
I will give you an hour of my time and optimize your sales
Mhm.
team, talk to you about how you're telling your company
Mhm.
story. Whatever it is that's going to be of most
Mhm.
benefit to you, we will figure out a way to do.
I love it. And one of the things that I was thinking about, we didn't even talk about this, so we just have to have you on again, is how you could be doing this if you're in the job market, right? Because like you said, you couldn't get the movie companies to buy from you. Well, sometimes we're going for a job, so we need to do the warm up. We need to all of those various. I was that I don't know why that was in my head at
One of
midnight
my,
last night.
it's funny you say that. So one of my insurance clients is like now getting into well, it's sort of a form. It's a different business that he's in,
Hmm,
and
hmm,
he had to close this like
hmm,
huge. He finally it was the
hmm,
meeting where they were going to say yes or
hmm,
no,
hmm,
and he's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, look, do you want them to see the best version or the worst version of what you're
Mhm.
about to do? And so we worked with them,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it went so well. I got the phone call like 2 days later,
Mhm.
and he started saying like how grateful he was and
Mhm.
how wonderful it had gone because we structured
Mhm.
his pitch
Mhm.
and all that stuff. And and I started asking him, I'm like, listen, nobody ever does that. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
calling me. And I started asking him a few questions. He's like, listen, Bob, I have to go. I haven't even called my wife yet, but I just wanted to let you know how powerful it
Ah,
was
I
what you
love
did.
it.
And
Mhm.
so after being on a bunch of podcasts,
Mhm.
one thing about sales is the more zeros after what you sell, the better the sales job is.
Mhm.
And so now that I've been on a bunch of podcasts, I want to work with venture capitalists
Mhm.
because if you are getting money from
Mhm.
people, you are closer. You
Yep.
cannot, no one
Mhm.
writes a check without being at their
Mhm.
idea.
Mhm.
And so that's the task in front of you is to close
Mhm.
people, and I can help you do it better. And all I want is a little piece of the harvest. I will work for free. I will, are no, not
Pennies, pennies, not
pennies on
free.
the value of what you're doing
Mhm.
with venture capital. Actually,
Mhm.
the first 5 venture capitalists call me to affect their presentations. I will work with for free,
Ooh,
just to figure out how to do
right.
this because
Ah, I
I
love it.
want to go
Mhm.
after the market where there's
Mhm.
lots of zeros after it,
Mhm.
and that's my next frontier. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
it's a lot of fun. I love
Mhm.
helping people be effective closers
Mhm.
and to help people
Mhm.
turn their agenda
Mhm.
into someone else's
Mhm.
idea.
I
That's just a
love that.
cool skill,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when it's the best way to serve
Hmm.
them.
Right. Well, this really has been so much fun, and we do need to do it again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to
Oh
leave
my
everyone
God,
with?
I usually have a final thought. Sure. Um, the only thing better than finding what you want and knowing it because you're in the hands of a trusted expert is helping someone else do it. And that being that person that helps someone get what they want is so powerful that once you learn how to do it, it really becomes a lifelong practice. And so if you're in the world of sales and you think of closing as somehow a little bit icky or beneath you, find out what's in here and really connect with the good that you bring to your customers and how to do that more effectively and why. Connect with the why you're never tired driving home from a sale
Oh,
or after a day where you've gotten a bunch of customers to move forward that wouldn't have otherwise, but for the belief that you have in your product. That is a powerful experience that enriches the lives not just of your customers, not just of your company, but you. It really allows you to step into the full power of yourself as a human being that can help others. And that's really what closing is being a maximum service to your customers, to your company, and to yourself. So that's the message in my book. And that's the space that I'm coming from wanting to expand the world of sales, beyond its current state of, who can do it cheaper.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with Bob King. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.